Okay, I found a perfect sample for this next lesson. Let's extend this out. I'm going to hear this little thing back. We'll play it from right here. Move the playhead there. Play it back. Oh man, that's loud. Okay, this lesson is all about fading in and fading out. And we want to get our fade tool. So looking for our fade tool. And let's find out which one is the fade tool here. Here it is, our fade tool right there, right? That's our fade tool. So I'm going to extend this, make it look a little bigger and a little wider so we can get a good view of it. This is the sound. And a lot of times you're taking sounds in, man, they sound cool. I like that sound. It's funky, but it's too loud in the front. It doesn't even fade. It comes in and fades out short of something. You want to fix these things on the tracks all the time. So the track is selected and the sound is selected. Got my fade tool. I just need to drag it across the top. And you see, I just drag it and now it fades in. Let's hear it back now from here. Much better. It gets that dynamic move where it comes in. It's like linear tape. It means that it's coming exactly. Each little time it goes by, every second, millisecond, it's gradually increasing in volume until it gets to the peak volume. And you can see that also here. If you go to our inspector here for that region, which is the rise and fall synth, it's an Apple loop, so check it out. And you'll see here that we have a fade in and the amounts here as well. So I can also go to here, I can drag up and down. You see how it changes it in increments? Where I'm going up and down, and the fade is now changing as I drag and up or down or pull it side to side here. And you see the curve right there too. So this means I can go to here and I can go to here, I can apply a curve. See that? I can put a curve right in there, pull a curve and make it sort of like a parabolic, I like that word, parabolic move, right? Let's go back to here. So it's a small gradual rise and a rush to the top, see? Which is kind of cool as well. Depending on how you want to use your fade in. That also affects your fade out. But the beauty of it, you can control it here from the inspector as well. I go to here, I can control the curve as well. I can go plus or minus and get my curve to be like this. Let's hear this back. So it starts off real fast in the beginning, and then it gradually just keeps that same pace where it almost sounds like it's not actually fading in, but it really is, and you know it is because you can see it right there. Now I can also do a fade out. So my fade tool, I just go to the end of the region and just drag it in because it's a fade tool. And we drag it into here. There we go. I got a fade in and a fade out. And of course, I just move my cursor in the middle here and click on it, and I can get the curve going there as well too. See that? Let's try this. Here's a big curve. Here's a little curve here. And we'll hear this back. See? I can come right into a nice little club track. And it's really cool how you can do that. Without having to do it in a mix, you can do it directly from the audio file. And you'll see it here on the inspector too as well, where we have the fade out and fade in. I can also control the values here. So I'm getting back here, I'm doing everything. And I got this region here, right? I want to probably, I got an idea. We're going to do this, we're going to press Command R from our first lesson, press 1. We're set to divisions, we don't want to do that. We're going to go right to Auto, and I'm going to click OK. And now we got 2 regions. And sometimes I got 2 regions, but I want to crossfade those regions, right? So I've still got my tool selected here, and I can just go to here and drag around them there. Look at that. I made a crossfade between regions. This is so cool. I can extend it on the end here. So here, I can extend my crossfade here. As you can see where this first region, it gradually goes down and crossfades right within the region. I can take it here and extend this out further where now the X appears between the 2 regions. And this is a really cool way to actually get 2 regions that could be even different or the same regions to sort of crossfade in a mix like. Let's check this out. Now that doesn't work too. What I will do is I'll go down here and I'll sort of change that S in there. See that? Make the S go different. Or grab one S and sort of make it really parabolic. And the other one, I do the same thing to it. See? But as you do one or the other one, you'll notice what happens here. It affects the other region as well. Its own curve. Let me go back here. Play it back from here. That's pretty cool because you'll see it here. It's actually fading within the first region. And maybe almost more than halfway through, it starts to do something. So let's hear this back from the top of this region. That's a cool thing to do with a pretty much a nice dance song. You want to make these two regions have some effect that you don't want to do in a mix. You want to make sure these crossfades happen like this, and you can control them. And you can always control them from here also as well, right here in your inspector. That's how we can create crossfades between two audio regions. So I'm here working on this track, and another feature I like to use with Logic, as I made that little loop thing work there, is to take some regions and just mute them. See that? Now this is pretty simple. I went back into here, got my mute tool right there and used it, right? And so I can pick the regions I want, go back to here. And you'll hear there, as I roll it back to that section again, a little noise happens, right? Get a little clip right off. And what I would normally go right back in here is I'd go back to my cursor pointer tool, select this region here, and then I want to really zoom in. And then I'll zoom in really close. I'll find that right here at the end of it, when it comes like that, I'll just go back in here and use my fade tool. So I'll pull the fade tool up here. And I'm going to just fade a little bit here. So a little bit off the edge of that, right? Make it just come off of there where I don't want to hear that at all. You just want to check your fade out so it's really good. And then what I also do is I'll put the S on it. And then I'm really putting it to it. And then I'll play it back a little bit. Let's extend it back out again. I just want to get an idea of how it sounds without it. And that's not too bad. You hear it come out, that little clip isn't there anymore. That's how I would use my fade tool and my mute tool. Because sometimes in a mix you're going to fade something, and then you won't realize as you do, there's a little abrupt ending to a piece. And you want to combine the two in a sense. Now once you do fade a region, let's go back here. I'll pull back up the mute tool. Here it is again. And I'll unmute these two little regions there. I want you to notice something here on our inspector. We have a mute and a loop, right? So if I go to here, of course, there's no loop, right? But I just hit that, I just sort of like muted everything. And when I did, you'll see what happens here. It's checked off. The mute is checked off. So let me undo this again. And so I just want to go pretty much just mute this one. Do that. We'll also let them click right here. I want to mute this one and this one. There you go. And so make sure you know how to use your mute tool like I just did there. I made a few mistakes, but it's important for you to see how it works. And here, once I select one little item in that region there, in its entire form here, you'll see now it says loop, right? But once I go to that one tool there, with this tool, go to that one piece right here, it says muted. So know where your mutes are. I leave them there because I never know what's going to happen. Artists can come back in, or one day I wake up and I say, I want to put it back in. I want to talk about the Scissor Tool now. I've got my Scissor Tool selected, and you notice here I've got the grid going on, right? And it's important when using the Scissor Tool to understand that if you go outside the grid, you don't see it. So make sure when you do select the tool and you're going to use this tool that you sort of like see where it's at in the grid and just snip it there, right? I want to make sure I'm in the grid and I'm snipping it where I want to snip it at. That's really important to do. Because sometimes you might not even be there. I'm in smart snap right there. Sort of smart snapping it to it. And if I go here to ticks and frames, I really don't know where I'm at. I could go right here, it cuts it. I have no idea. It's not smart snapping at all. So I want to make sure they're going to be on the line when I use this tool. And if you really can't see also, let's undo this. What you want to do is you want to get your Marquee Tool out. So we get our Marquee Tool out, and we want to select an area, a range, like right in here. I want to zoom in. And you want to zoom into that area, right? And look at that area right there. I can also get my zoom tool up here, and then pull the zoom tool up, and then I want to zoom into right here. So I get that area marked off, and now I'm zooming in. Now when I pull up my Scissor Tool, I can see where I am in relationship to the grid of the overall track. So now I want to talk about and work with different regions. And first thing I want to do is want to set up how to chop a region up. Like for example, this is a region here, right? Let's say I want to cut it up and chop it up or something. I'll press Command. I get my Marquee Tool, and I can pull down and drag on the region I want to chop up. Now you notice too is a little menu that comes up that shows you the marquee start and the marquee end, which will help you get the right area you want to chop out of that particular region or just cut up. I can let go, that region selected, just click here, and now I have a brand new piece I want, as you can see right there. That's pretty easy to do. Let's undo that, press Command Z. Now I can also move my playback head anywhere here on the standard region, right? And I want to chop it right there. You know, and I see I'm here. I'm at 10 bars, 1 beat, 1 division, 1 click. The very beginning of the 10th measure. I can set it there, press Command T, and look, I've chopped the region up we got. Front and the back there, 2 different pieces. That works out really good. And you can also use your scissor tool. So I can go to here, my tools, and I'll select the scissor tool, pull my scissor tool up, of course, move this where I want to move it to, or just bring the scissor tool right here and say I want to cut it right there, and it does. I chop it right there as well. Now be aware too now, when you have, let's say, a region like this, and it's been a loop region, right? And it's been looped, and I have a, let's say, pull this tool back up here, press Command, and pull this down, and then click it right there. I can still get that piece, but once I do, this loop region now becomes the regular original region copy, and then a chop is made from that. Okay? I can undo that, and I'm back to where I was at before. Okay, cool. So look, this next lesson is all about using drag. Now you'll see the drag option right here, and there are several options. There's overlap, and then there's no overlap, and then there's crossfade, right? Which says X fade right there. So here, if I overlap, that means I can go on top of this region. I just overlap it right on top of that. Let's say I had something right here, and I want to just like, and it just jumps back in again. See that? It came right back in and jumped on that part of the beat, a little bit off, but if I overlap it there, that's what happens. So let me zoom in a little more here. And then I can just take it and move it here. I only overlapped it. That's all I did. Just overlapped it, and the original is still there. Now, if I go here and go to no overlap at all, and then I take this region, I drag it into right about there. I want to come in there on a 3rd beat, and I come back here and try this. Well, that didn't work. I take it and I move it over here. You'll notice, wait a minute, it sort of erased part of this beat. And you pull it back where it should be at, this part's missing. Well, that's no overlap. When I get to no overlap and I put it on top of a region and I sort of push into that region and then I pull back away, the section that was there is gone, right? So be aware that now actually it's not really gone. We are in non-destructive editing. It was just sort of just squashed down a little bit there. Just folded in. The part that you see was kept. The other part is folded behind it in a sense. This is non-destructive editing. Now next, let's undo that. And we have crossfade. Here's crossfade. So if I have regions like this, and let's say I got this thing going on here, and I want to probably look at this a little sharper, and I want to bring it in a little bit more, I'm saying, you know, I may want to take this beat and put this right over here like this, on top of that one like that. And then once I do, what Logic does, it writes its own crossfade in. And it wrote a crossfade right in here. See that? That crossfade is right there. You can see it. And now, let's play it back. See that? Let me go back again from here. And so what happened is that it just crossfaded the 2 regions to each other. Now this works great with vocals, and it works great also with voiceovers. If you're doing commercials, or you're just doing a voiceover for a movie or something, or whatever, or for a score you're putting together, and you got a voiceover, it's good to get these vocals at the same time, maybe the same volume, and you want to make sure that there's some consistency from one to the other. And the crossfade works great for that. In this lesson, we're going to deal with flex pitch before we use flex for flex time, where we took a loop, we sort of sped it up or slowed it down a little bit to make sure it fit the BPM, beats per minute, for that particular track. Well, we'll do time now. So I'm just going to click here, double click there, and here we've got flex pitch already set up, right? Now, if you don't have that, you just go to here, this little twisted audio file you see right here next to view and next to our latch or catch to the playhead, and then click there, it turns purple, and you have the options here of slice, monophonic, automatic flex pitch, and here we have flex pitch. So here in flex pitch, as you can see right here, we've got a bunch of little sort of like pieces here. Now, what's great out in the background is the audio region, right? But here we see these little pieces. Let me zoom in a little tighter. You'll see more. We see little pieces of this file. See these 6 little buttons here. Like we have this button here, which is for vibrato. Where if I pull this up or down, that makes it more vibrato, a more vibrato sound, as you can see right there. And then here, this adds more gain to the overall sound. Here, this is the pitch drifting. Here is the fine tuning of the pitch. And here, pitch drifting again. So sometimes the pitch may drift in the beginning or the end. This is great for vocals too as well, to move the vocals around and get the right pitch out of vocals. For right now, it's going to use it on this particular sort of track here I have here for this club type mix. So I'm going to pull it back here a little bit, get a much more larger overview. And I can click here on the track itself, and I can see everything in that region, right? And I can go in here. In fact, we will go in here, actually. I'm going to move this out the way, this playhead, so I can see it fully. And I want to get and select everything in here. See, all the way up before we get to the next region, which is the copy of the first region. And here, I can click on it and drag. What I'm going to do right now, though, I'm going to expand it so I can actually get a chance to use the grabber. Here's the grabber right there. I get the grabber, and I can move it up. And I moved it there. Let's hear it back. Now it sounds really weird, right? Let's go back, undo that, play it again from the top again. Now see, I moved it up about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 semitones. So when you're working with flex pitch, you got to keep it close to the range. You want to move no further than maybe 4 semitones with it, all right? So I still have the use of it because they're all selected. I can move it down a little bit. Right there, and top. So I can change the pitch of any sound I want using flex tone. That's pretty cool with flex right there, right? So I can also, let's go back here and pull the flex down right here a little bit. I want to actually see that. If you have a key, let's say it's C major, right? I'm in C major, we'll say. And I have a key and I want to make everything fit that key. I can also go here, grab that sound again, and then I can go to sort of flex pitching itself. We can do automatic pitch, right? And then do you want to suspend all flex pitch edits? Switching to flex time mode, flex time, monophonic will suspend all your pitch edits until you return to flex pitch mode. Yep, okay, we'll do that. And then we're back. And then here's what happened. We got nothing here, right? Like nothing's there at all. Let's go back to the top. And it changed the pitch there of everything. And I'll bring another part I want to have in here. It's like the C key. And it changed the pitch of that Dutch trumpet to fit the overall track for C major. And that's a great way. It's automatically transposing it. So, okay, I know it's in C major. We've got the key down. I'm going to make sure this is in C major. It looks at it, and it conforms it to that pitch. It's great. I want to look at flex pitch now with a little vocal. So I've got this vocal. It's called Bailey Melody '06. It's in your Apple Loops library, and let's play it back a little bit right here.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
A little melody she's going on there. She's just doing a little scat thing and improv. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to double click that. And now I've got flex already pitched out since I was testing it first. You'll see, of course, we went to flex purple right there. I went to flex pitch from right here. And then here you can see the vocal parts, right? And we can see the parts and the pitches where they are in relationship to the keyboard right here. Now you get the keyboard, you won't be able to hit the sounds, but be able to hit the keys that she's in. And we see here she's in the key of C, right? No black keys are being hit here whatsoever, and she's right on it. And this note right here, I don't want that note there, right? This note here, I really don't want that note to be. So I can take that note and move it back up a little bit, right? Where I want it to be at. But you also can see in the overlay where the black keys would be, it's a little darker in the background of the grid. And then, of course, you see the audio file in the background of the grid. So here, of course, I can fine-tune some of these pitches here. I can sort of fine-tune this one. Or here, for example, she's rising up into there. I may not want that. May want to have where she's closer to it, right? So I'm going to get her close to the pitch right here. This is going to give her more gain to that pitch. Here, I can take away the vibrato and vibrato, or pitch drift. So pitch is sort of drifting. I don't want it to drift so much. I want to bring it back on. So I'm going to drag it way up there and bring this first pitch back in time. Let's say I want to start and play it back from here. Let's get this mouse and move this cursor right here and play it back.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now let me undo that, and we'll hear it back again.
Oh.
And you hear it here, right? And so that's how it sounds originally, as you can see, right? So I sort of change it a little bit, where that it's right dead on when she comes in there for that pitch drift. I might not want that there. Now also here we've got vibrato, so I can probably bring this down to here, and we'll go back to here at the top and hear the vibrato change.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And sort of change the vibrato in the beginning of that pitch. And here we have format shifts. So I can change the format of this shift a little bit. And back at the top again.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
And here I've got this yeah thing. I may want to get this to where the pitch is just a little bit more on for me. And maybe just bring the vibrato right to there. And a pitch drift. It's a little pitch. You hear me too. You can hear the pitch drift right there, and play it back.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
See that pitch drift? It almost drifted enough to where it met this note right here. Now, as far as this note's concerned, that's not too bad enough. Like, as I hear it back, it's not bad. It works pretty well for me. And then here, at the end of this phrase, play it back. It's a little vibrato here. I don't want too much of the vibrato there, right? So here, I'm sort of going to bring this down to vibrato level and play it back from right here. And now I'll play it from the top again.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I may want to do it right here as well. So I go back to here, and I want to just get this vibrato down a little bit. Let's make it actually wider so you can really hear the exaggeration of the vibrato.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So sort of shorten it up, but it's just a sweet, light vibrato. So you can work with these 6 different nodes you've got here. Little circles we have here. Little knots like this is like, we can pitch drift. Here below that, we can increase the gain. We can make it louder. See, as we do, you see the audio file increase in size as well. We can format the shift. Here we can pitch drift. Make that pitch drift a little bit. So my suggestion to you is to try it out, particularly when you got singers that have a little problem sometimes with pitch variance. I like to do it and use it also on background vocals and with choruses to make sure every part's perfect, so when they play together, the sound is one. Arranging projects with Arrange Track is a great way to set up your song or your project up for mixing and try to see which sections work or don't work. Now, a lot of times before I get to that point, I am generally moving around regions. Like I've got a region here, let's say I like this region, and I want to put this region here at bar 29. I will just click on a region, I'll press Command C to copy it, then I'll just press paste. I'll move that region over there. Makes it easier for me. Sometimes I see a region and I want to probably mute it. Well, I'll just press Control M here. I can mute that region. If I got a track I don't want to hear right now, and I want to sort of mute that track, for example, this is on, I go back, that's on, I got this channel selected here, I'll press Option M, and that whole channel is muted. So this is where I can hear certain channels, mute that channel, mute this little region, move that region. You can arrange these regions in your main window. Now, once you got the project set up and you think it's going to work the way it is, well, what I normally do is I'll go back in, so I mute something else here, and I'll say, you know, I want to play it back or get an idea of what it looks like. I'll go here to where it says Show Hide Global Tracks. Now, here I have my arrangement, right? I can click here, and then what Logic does, it pulls it in and says, okay, this is a verse. Well, no, it's not a verse. So I can go to here, those two arrows come up, I can select intro, verse, chorus, bridge, or the outro. This is kind of cool. Or even rename it. So here, for example, this will be my intro. It'd be like 8 bars. Then I'll say add another one. I add another one here. This is pretty cool. This is not my outro, so I can go back into here, and I want to like go right here and name this. This will be my, I'll call this something different. My intro 2. I can rename these arrangements. So here, it's too long. I don't want it to be 8 bars. I can drag it in here and make it 4 bars. So I can arrange the parts around, oh, I want that to be here, this to be here, this is this part. Now I go to my next part here. This could be like the chorus. So I go to here, I'll say add another one, and this is not the intro. So I go to here again, I drop down, I want to call it the chorus. But I want this chorus to be this length. So this is a great way for us to move our regions around. Let's grab it here actually and pull the trimmer tool up and get it like this, and that's 4 bars, to move our regions around and say what they're going to be and to get an idea of how our mix is going to really work. Let's see, this part could be my bridge, I'll say. So I can bring this in here, and that's the bridge. But maybe I want to take this piece here, move this close to here. So sometimes I'm even, while I'm arranging, I'm trying to make sure it fits in perfectly. So let's undo that. Let's just move it closer. Maybe just get rid of it, matter of fact. I'll take this piece and maybe double it up. Let's see how long this piece is here. So I can click on it. Let's see. Click on this. Oh, good. We got an idea. Position where it's at and where it goes to 21. That's probably long enough. That's going to be right there. That's my bridge, right? And then here, I can go one more time. I'll select here, and that's not the intro. But you can figure out what you're going to be. So normally when you start off, it'll say intro. But I already tested it a little bit to make sure this lesson would be good. So here I go a little outro. And then that's good for now. And then what I want to do is I want to probably save this. So you want to save always, right? And next what I want to do is sort of arrange these things around. I can take one part here, move that part here, move that part here. So, but first before I do that, I want to make sure I can save this. So I go to alternate takes, and I'll say a new take. This will be my We Dance 1 mix. And I'll press OK. Now once it does, you'll notice the title of the project has changed now. It says We Dance 1 Mix Tracks right there. Pretty cool. And then once I say, well, look, this is kind of cool. I got a part here, and a part there. It makes it easier. So I've got my parts picked out. And let's say, for example, I want to grab this bridge and move this bridge over. Let me see. I want to move it someplace. I want to move it here to where the chorus is at, right over here where the chorus is at, right? And as I do, you know what's going to happen? It grabbed everything. All the tracks in the region, there are little regions in there. These tracks and regions right here were grabbed from where they were before to where the bridge was at before and moved it over here to make it easier. That's pretty cool. So I can take sections and say this is the verse, is the chorus. No, I want the chorus here, I want the verse here. And you can move them around and get them where you want, where they might sound better. And see, I changed it. I can also go back to undo, go back to hear again, hear it again. And get that part back in. So I can move the chorus, the bridge, the outro, the intro 2, or the intro anywhere I want and get an idea of how it sounds. Because what happens is that Logic sees it. As you can see, it cuts up each section, and now I can move the section rather than moving the regions. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about mixing and the organization you need to have when mixing. It is so important to have your tracks lined up properly. And in Logic, since we can add colors, I prefer to have colors for certain tracks and placement of certain tracks in certain areas so I know where I'm working from. And it's good to get familiar with that. So first, we're going to press Command 2, and we can see our mixing board. So our mixer right here. I can scroll down, I can scroll across, and these are all the tracks. Now here, let's say I want to see a single track, right? Let's say I wanted to see a single track. Let's say I selected this track here, and I said single. And then I would see that one single track, right? So I see all tracks. These are all the tracks. I can see everything. So here I can see all the audio, the instrument, the auxiliary, the bus tracks, the input, the output, the master, the MIDI, and the list is right here. You can see them. And if I want to just see one, I can go back in here and just sort of, well, I'll get rid of this, get rid of that, get rid of that. And I'll just see the master, the MIDI, drop the MIDI, I just see the master. And the easy way to do this is probably just press Option, and then I just want to see just the audio tracks. Or I just want to see audio, we'll say, and the instruments, and let's see the auxiliary, and the master, and the other output tracks I want to see. And there I can see all these tracks right here, and select the tracks that I want to see. Before you start mixing, you've already got your track view set up here, like I do here, for example. You need to have some sort of criteria in your head thinking that I need to establish the idea where all my tracks are. Vocals are over here, choruses are right next to them, guitars are here, including guitar parts and submixes and basses, and then the drums and the synths here. So you know where they are when you start mixing and you put your project back up. You can get to the parts quickly and you're more organized. So here in Logic, as you can see, I've got this track set up here. This is actually a demo that comes with Logic. It's the reason why we're using it, so you can actually see it yourself in case you want to see the idea of how to organize the tracks. And here, you really can't move tracks around. I can't just take a track and move it over here, right? So the way you can do this, though, is to go back to the main view. So I'll press Command tilde here, and now we're in the main view. So here I can see where the choruses are and the guitars are right there, right? I got my guitars here, guitar hits and piano right there. And if I want to move a track, I can always just move it, grab that track and just move it over there, or grab this track here and move it down to here. As you can see, just move my tracks over to where I think it's best to have them. So here I'm just looking over tracks, for example, my bass and fuzz are right there. Here's the kick drum, snare drum, and they're all right there with the rest of the drums, and the live drum sound is right here. So I may want to move this clap track for one. I have to keep my claps pretty much near my main hi-hat. So I'll put this right here, right there. Classics to 808. And then we got the percussions here. We got our toms there, which are good. And then I prefer to keep the percussion really pretty much outside the main drum. So I want to keep them outside of this crash cymbal and this other crash flange. And just arrange your tracks around so you get them where you want them to be. Now, once I've established the tracks, I want to go back here to Mixer next. And I want to make sure the colors are right that I want to use for each one of these tracks. And I don't get confused with colors being this is the wrong color, it's the right color here. So for example, here we've got our vocals here, and our vocals are all blue here, right? So let's get back to here. These are all pretty much a lot of this girl's vocals. So I'm going to put them right here, and I select them all like that. And I can go back to my color palette right there. And we're going to press Option C. And here I want to name these. So I'm going to call these. I'm going to call these something like pink. And there you go. They're more pink there, right? It's much better. And then I'm going to scroll down to here too. and get an idea of what these other parts look like. These are some more vocals with some backings to them. So I'm going to go in here and select these tracks here too. This one up to here. And then it's going to be a little bit darker pink right there. Then I'm going to scroll to my basses. What my bass is, my bass synth. And then here's my bass filtered. I'm going to press, hold down shift and select tracks right there. And for the bass, I want it to be a little more orangey. There you go. A little orangey ready. That's much better. I can see what they are. And then we've got this Tron Vibes electric keyboard. So the keyboards are different. I've got this Yamaha keyboard here. This one, I prefer to be this light color blue like that. Then we got this electric piano distorted. I prefer this blue for that. And then we've got the electric Rhodes, which can have the same color actually, about the same sound. And then this Tron Vibes. This would be more like a yellow for me. So you can get these colors lined up for each one of these parts of the track. Vocoder. Here's the vocoder. I can go to vocoder and make it green. Right? And then here I've got these strings. So I'm holding down shift, selecting my strings, and I want to make these this color right. See, right over here. This blue here. There we go. Perfect. Almost a bluish purple there. And I'm making sure I've got everything lined up the way I want it to be and the way the color should be seen, and it's good, then I'll keep that. So it's always important to add colors to your tracks. That helps out a whole lot. Now once that's done, I'm going to close out this palette here, and then we're going to go back to our main window. Command Tilde again. And here in the main window, you'll notice that not all the tracks are actually the same color. So I'm going to go in here and it's going to sort of like select all these tracks and make sure they're all selected. All right. Then I'm going to go Shift, Option. Hold on, a few more to go. I got a few more here on the top to go. Let's back to here. There we go. So all my tracks are selected, right? Perfect. I'm going to go Shift, Option, C. And now, all these tracks have the colors I picked out previously, and they're all the same colors that we have for my tracks. And to see that also, you can go to Track here, and you may want to get these headers here to be the same color as the track colors. So you go here, we want to assign track colors. And you'll see, they appear right there. I'll pull this out here, of course. And now you can see the colors much better of what we changed, the basses we changed. See that there? And the bass synths right there. And we can always fix these up too as well. Go back to add some different colors and make sure they're right. But this is a great way that you have the track colors matching the region colors. So when you grab a track, you open it up, that's the color for the track, and there's the color for the region, you know you're in the right space. Now here I want to show you something too as well. I got this track here, I move that track. I'm going to go in here and I can select this track, hold down Shift, like some other ones here. And I can select these tracks, and then once I do, I can control their faders because they've all been selected. I can also control their panning. And this is very useful when you want to check out a group of tracks and you want to make sure they sound good. If you can move them, bring them all down. For example, background vocals. You may have the bass, tenor and alto, or you may have a bass and a sub bass with a bass guitar or something like that. And then you want to make sure these sounds blend well. So you're going to have certain levels for each fader's volume for those sounds, or panning even, particularly with background vocals. We're going to have the altos and the sopranos are going to just either blend well with the mid-range voices or not. So this is a great way to test it out. Now once you've got it and you like it, think it works good, then the best thing to do is to go back in and to make them into a group. So for example, I go to here, looks like these basses here, and I can make them into a group. I go here and you'll see to the left, we have this group, right? So I can go to here inside this little box, it hasn't been assigned yet. I go here and I can assign it to a group. Let's say basses, group 7. And once I do, of course they were that way before and they've all been selected, now they're all assigned to basses. That's an easy way to do it. Now also, if I want to see what the settings are, I can go here and open up the Open Group Settings. And once I do, I can see all the groups. Here we have lead vox, background vox, guitar, keys, synth, strings, basses. We've got up to 11 different groups right here. And this is a great way to work around. Rather than moving one fader at a time, we can move just one fader for a whole group rather than moving one fader for one sound. Now, they're not active, so to activate them, I'll do this. Just hit that button. And sometimes I will keep them off because I'm still testing out parts, looking at compression or how these groups sound. But once you get them where you like them, you want to activate the groups. You do it like that. Now, you'll notice here there are also settings. We have a settings. This little triangle gives us the settings for the groups. So let's say we select a group like this, the keyboard group right here, right? And we have settings for it. We have automation mode. We also have here volume, the mute, the solo, no panning selected. There's no automation, no setting where they're a group concerning the sends 1 through 8, the colors not a groups, and the track zoom, and then also the high track right there is good too. So you're going to make sure you have your groups set up in a way that they match up and you say, great, I've got the volume, the fader, and the panning, and that's part of the group. So once I go back here to that group, and let's say I just want to get the group going on. I could be here in the bass if I want to. It doesn't make a difference. Let me show you that because these are the keys. And I can just use one fader, and now it controls all the keys. But remember, there's no panning, so I can change the panning when I want to, and it won't affect the other parts of the group, just this one part that I move the panning for. Another important part about organization is placing sections for each part of the song. It's much easier to maneuver there when you want to get there and you know where you are. Now before we did this thing where we put the arrangement in, right? We had this arrangement and we pulled up a plus sign and we said this is going to be the verse, the chorus. I want to add something here. I'd say another outro right there, right? I just sort of renamed this thing and I can call it outro end there, right? Well, what you can also do, I can go here to markers. Let me stretch the markers out a little bit more. And that's the arrangement, but for markers it makes it easier. So I go here to markers, and let's undo that actually. Let's bring the marker all the way over here to the beginning, the playhead. And now I add a marker, because it'll start from the playhead. And this will be my intro, I'll say, right? So I can come back here to this marker, I can name the marker. I can call this intro. That's good. Then I move my playhead to where the next one's going to be at, which is right here. And then I want to add the marker. And this is going to be intro 2. Good. Then I go to here, add the marker. So you get the idea. I'm making markers. I want to know what's what and where it's at. Then I got a bridge here too. Let's go to bridge. And so this makes it easy for us to see these markers. And then when we're actually working with a track, we can see them and say, okay, I know where I'm at. And I will continue on, no need for that though. I'll go back here to list. And you go to list, you select markers. And now you can see your markers. You want to go to here? I want to go to there. I want to go to here. I want to go to the bridge. I want to go to the first one. All you got to do is select your marker and you can go right there in your mix. Now, before I start mixing, it's always good to pick a section I want to mix once I've made a group of that section. And then I want to probably get some levels going on and some panning. So I'm going to press Command tilde to go back to the main window. And as you can see here, I've got this loop range set up, right? And this is my loop. I want to listen back to this loop of just this one section. And Command tilde again. We're back here to the only window that's open, which is my mix window. And we press Command tilde to get to the next open window. Now, we'll see it here. I'm going to scroll to it. This is it right here. The drums. You can see here we have the drums right here. And if I want, I can go back in and maybe activate these tracks. But right now I don't. So I want to change some settings before I actually activate the group for it. So we're going to go back in here. I'm just going to play from this top of this loop range and get an idea what these drums are. So I will also solo a track, get an idea what's on this track, get the level. And here, as you can see, I have panning set up, so I can move my panning either way. I can drag down for left and drag up for all the way to the right. But see, when that happens, the stereo changes on that particular track. The stereo output of this, right? So you can see that right there. Then I want to probably hear this hi-hat, the snare drum rather, with the hi-hat. So I'm going to get this kick drum and a hi-hat. So you want to get your mix right. Now for me, I prefer to have the hi-hat a little bit left, a little bit right. Because I want the kick drum to be dead center. Then I'll probably pull off these here. Then how they sound together with the effect that's on top of them. Some toms there. Stop it, play again from the top. When I get to a specific section, I'll probably just got my clap right there. So now when I probably pull this in, I'm gonna get an idea of what the clap sounds like with the overall mix of it here. Yep. This is everything in. So I'm adjusting my cycle mode at the same time while setting up this part of the song, actually the percussion parts for the mixing. So I'm going to go back here again to the mixer. Bring my clap down. And then adjust my panning for my clap. And adjust my hi-hats a little bit more. So when actually turning the panning of those hi-hats, either left or right, it's not getting rid of it, but it's sort of narrowing the hi-hat width field. So it sort of just makes it a little bit different, but it's still going to be stereo, even though I'm panning it more to the left than I am to the right. But that was stereo panning, and to see whether a track's stereo mono, it's pretty simple. You go here to input, and you'll see it. Like, for example, here I have a track selected called the Guitar Acoustic. And you'll see these two little circles right there, like a figure right there. And then next to it, I have an input here for this Guitar Chop. And then that's just one circle. That's a mono, and this is a stereo track. So stereo panning is a little different than mono panning. We know that if we go left, there's no actually a right signal. And it's pretty much defined that it's either left or right. There's also another way that panning happens on Logic, and that's binaural panning. We'll check that out here. You'll notice this track I already have selected here. Let's go back to the overall mixer view, and you'll see it here, right? And I have a cycle set up for it right now, which is right here. And I can cycle, of course, through this sound. Go back here. I'm going to play it back and get an idea what's going on. Now, I do this for guitars, and it's important for you to understand this concept. This is really good because it works great for headsets. Now, I'll stop this, and then here, I'll go to stereo. And I'll right-click on stereo, and I'll go to binaural panning. And binaural comes up, and you'll see this little button here, this little knob here. Now the knob has changed from my regular panning view to this view. And I could turn this thing and see what happens. You can hear the difference. Now to see the actual plugin, I just double-click there, and the plugin comes up right here. Here it is. And I could bring them in. See how tighter it sounds? Much more tighter that way. And as I do, you'll notice here the angle, the elevation, and distance change. You can see that also. Also the speed as well. See? And the spread. This is the spread. Wider spread. Here I'm closer. And then I have it where it's almost sounding where it's semi-left or right. Where's it at? And that's more left, but still some sounds going to the right, as you can see. And this is a really tight sound right there. That's almost in stereo. You can see it also. You see these LED lights light up. There's light up here. So, well, okay, that's my view. And then I can expand it a little more. But notice, they never really change. There's no extreme panning to left or right. Now, this is great because it's great for headsets. Today, a lot of people have headsets. They got iPhones. They got Android phones. They've got all kinds of smartphones. They also have iPods. They have a system to listen to at home, maybe with a headset. So when making these mixes, and you're going to use something that's going to help you to get to the listener more with a headset mixing device and plug-in, it's good to use it because you need to really mix for the world you're in. That means if everybody's on a headphone system, you want to make sure that you're mixing for that audience. Now, also, when you hear this back at home, and let's say you're in the studio, this is not going to sound so great. Okay? So in order to compensate for it, because it is made for headsets, you want to go ahead to plugin, let's say. I'm going to go to the plugin here, and I'm going to set the plugin right here in this plugin list. And I want to select a plugin here. I'm going to go here to imaging, right? And then you see we have this binaural post-processing. And it already realizes that we're on a stereo track, so it gives you the option to go to stereo. And then we go to stereo. And then now you get this little dialog box here for that particular plugin. And this will help you. Compensate mode, headphone, DF, average. See that? And that's optimize for front direction. All right? Here's averaged over all directions. So this will help you so that when you hear it back in your studio or another studio, and you're hearing it back through like two systems, like, just mainly just your front speakers, maybe the overall bigger speakers, and your near field monitors, you'll get what you want to hear in the studio. Now I've got the guitar going on here, and what I want to do is I want to get a better idea of how to use it. So I pulled off my binaural panning, and now what I want to do is just listen back to the guitar playing the way it is. And what I need to do is add some sort of, effect to it to give this kind of natural sound I want to have for it. So I can go to library, and we can add a patch to this. And let me show you how this works. For example, here we're on acoustic guitar, right? So I can pick out what I want here. We have experimental bass, like electric guitar. I want acoustic guitar, so I'm going to click on this. And I have different settings. So I can go for the echo strum. And once I do that, you'll notice these patches load up in here. I've got an EQ now, a compressor, a channel EQ, and then an echo. And I'll play it back. So when I hit these patches from the library that comes with Logic, it loads in with plugins. That's already been patched and routed up for us to send these signals out with. So I go here to natural finger, and here it's just natural. There's no sends, there's just one bus here. Let's go to natural flat and play it back. It's got an EQ and a compressor and a channel EQ. Here's a natural one. And you can see the plugins that we have for it as well. There's a pedal board for this one here. Sharp chorus. So you can see what plugins match. Now once you get your plugins in there and you like them, I tend to listen back. There isn't much strumming here, so thin strum too. We'll check this out too as well. Yeah, a thinner sound. So what you want to do when you get a plugin set up and you got something you like and you pull a plugin and you say, well, this might work pretty much what I'm doing. You want to go over it and check it out and see how you can maybe even improve the sound. Like for example, I have a compressor, I have an EQ, another channel strip right here. I'm looking for something else I want to have. Here's a pedal board. So here I got a pedal board too as well. And you just click on those plugins and see what comes with them. So here we have this retro chorus. But you know it's not on because there's no light on here, right? So it's not really on. I'm changing it, doing stuff to it, and now you'll hear it. And you can hear the retro chorus sound. It's almost an old school sound, really. I don't want too many hertz here. If I want to add some stuff, I can go here and just add a fuzz box. turn that off. Don't need that. I'll take it and drag right back here into my pedal boxes. I can close it or empty that. Ooh, that's kind of cool. And it's right back there again. I can close this out, and so I can adjust the sound for this guitar or any instrument actually. If I look through the library, I might find something I like and then adjust it. Now, as we look over this demo session called The Fear that you should have with your Logic that you've downloaded from Apple's website, or you have the DVDs or CDs for it or whatever. If you can't find it, you're just going to go to library and you're looking for support. And in there you'll see in support, you'll see it right there under Logic demo songs. So here, as you see, I'm playing this back. I want to talk now about drums and a lot of common things we do with drums and how these plugins work. And before we did something with patches, right? We had these patches working out. And then you pull the patch in for a particular sound. Now here I'm in drums, and generally for drums, I'll generally just sort of make the drums fit each other or fit the overall sound I want to have. Now you'll see here, for example, in my snare drum, there's a compressor here on top, and then there's an EQ. And you'll see here on the bass drum, let's unsolo the snare. I'm going to select the kick drum again and play this back. Now, this is important to hear this part. You'll notice there's an EQ before the compressor. So what happens here, we are EQing the sound. We're getting the proper EQ we want for that. Now you'll notice here, I click on EQ, this comes up, and as you can see, this little thumbnail here represents that same picture I just showed you of the EQ. I'll pull the EQ back up from the plugin, and you'll see here the plugin, and it's the same little representation of it. You'll see here, there's a little bit of bump here, and there's a bump here also, a bump here, roughly about at 3,350 hertz. And there's another bump that's right over here, as you can see here, at 90 hertz, right? And of course, we roll a little bit off here, and we're not too much in the highs. That's a little punchy sound. We're getting a nice little punchy sound. And so I've got the EQ set up there. Then there's a compressor after that. And this compressor, let's turn this on, starts to compress right before it gets to close to 0 dB, but starts to take hold of it somewhere right above minus 10 dB. And see, it's the manual here. You can always pull in a separate plugin if you like. When you go here, we got a plugin like this, I can pull a separate preset up. And I can pull any of these presets up and say I want it to be this way or that way, right? But this is a manual setup here. We just mess around here with the, see this here? This is the threshold level. And this is my gain. I can get a higher gain, but see, it goes more on the red. So you gotta be careful using a compressor. Now the reason why we're going over this, I'm gonna stop this now. I'm gonna pull down this gain here. A little gain I was given to the track. I'm gonna pull this other channel EQ down. There are 2 EQs in this overall setup. Now listen back again. Now I'm gonna take the EQ and put it below the compressor. And now play it back. We've got more pump now. So what's happening here is the compressor is compressing it and giving it that tight compressed sound, and then the EQ comes in. You notice too, we're getting something in the red right here too as well. I'll press stop right there. Now I'll take the channel EQ and put it above that. And I'll play it back in. So what I'm trying to show you that it depends on where your plugin's at. Now if you're going to EQ first, you EQ first, then get your compressor in. If you want more punch first, you'll add your compressor first, then add an EQ. Then you'll add your other plugins as you go further down. So we have a compressor here, and then the EQ's on top of that, then another EQ comes in. And this is an EQ after the compression, as you can see it right here. Now I'll play this back again and turn this EQ off. You hear the difference. And now we'll look at that EQ, and you'll see there's more bump here. And this is at 83 hertz. about 4.5 dB up. So it added some more bump after the EQ and the compressor. Then there's some gain after that. Turn the gain down. Whoa, see that? It's gain reduction, so it's reducing the gain here. What's happening here, it's pulling back on the gain. Here we go, 10% down from where it was at. Now this next lesson, we're going to talk about mixing drums and ways you can mix drums with Logic Pro X, particularly with a drummer. I'm going to talk about more than anything else. Now here I have this drummer track, right? I click on a drummer track, and we see we have Kyle the drummer, right? And I can play the track back. Matter of fact, let me just play back the drum part only. I hear the drum part going on here. Okay, great. So I got a drum part. And this is the drum part we're recording. Now, you'll notice also that this has a fader. So I'll get rid of this library for a second. I'll pull up the I. And we have a fader here. Now, this fader controls every drum sound. So I'll press the play again. Now I'll pull it down. And all the drums are controlled here by that one fader. Now, when mixing, I really don't like that. I think most of us really don't. The problem is that each drum is different. Every drum has its own frequency range, its own sonic quality, and acoustic as well. So the problem ends up being that we got these crashes and these cymbals, and we got a bass drum. They should not be at the same volume, or they should actually be in different areas. One could be penned a little right, a little left. And so, moving on here, we have the library. Now here you can see the library for SoCals right here, right? I have my drum kits, here's SoCal. So let's go back to here. We have SoCal. And then we have producer kits. See this? We're going to producer kits. Now you'll have producer kits if you loaded up the extra content that Logic has once you load the software on your Mac. And when you do, you get these producer kits. And you'll see in these producer kits, they're the same kits, except they have this plus sign next to them. So I'm going to click here for the plus sign for that kit. And now it loads in that SoCal producer kit. So I'm going to close out the library here. And then now, let's close this down for one. We have our SoCal kit. We have this little triangle, so we can unpack this. And once we do, you can see every drum. But you notice one thing. For example, here we have overhead. This is overhead mics right here, right? Then below that here, we got the kick drum in. That's the microphone inside kick drum. This is the microphone outside the kick drum. Here's our snare, top. That's the microphone on top of the snare. Snare bottom, the mic under the snare. So what's happened here that they've got a system here with a producer kit where you already have this setup where you have these different mics, and you can set up which mics you want to use for your mixing of your drums from a drummer set. Now, I'm going to go to my mix window. And here in the mix window, we can see, of course, they're the same color. Our kick drum out, our kick drum in, snare top, snare bottom, hi-hats, toms, everything's right there. So I play this back. I can adjust my levels like, here's my out. Here's my kick drum mic directly in, so I can hear the difference. See the difference? That's inside the kick drum. This is outside the kick drum. I can pull this down. I can take the solo off. I can get a different set of how the snare sound. I can go to his solo. That's on top of the snare. This is from the bottom of the snare drum. And you can hear the snare as it hits the drum. The snare is rattling somewhat. So you can tell this is a bottom mic. So this is so cool. You get a kit, and then the producer kit helps to embellish that kit for the process of mixing. So if you're gonna mix with a kit, let's say you got a drum kit you're using, or you made a drum beat up on the Ultra Beat, and you pull it in. You can always go back, pull a drummer up, and get different mic setups for your drum sound. And this is great for mixing, as you can see. So the cool part is that even when I pull this down, I still control all the drums. So this is a master output, like an auxiliary subgroup, where I have this group controlled by auxiliary, and each individual sound has its own volume as well. Now going back to my main window, you can still see the overhead mics. We can see the kick drum in, kick drum out. The fader appears here. But as with the main mixer that we just saw, it went to that auxiliary, which was this right here. Now before, normally, if we just see this overhead, we see the main output. But now when you unfold it, when I unfold this out, and I click on one of these mic drums, whether it's the snare or the overhead mics or the cymbals, and they're mic'd up, I'm looking for that mic, you'll see this auxiliary here. It says SoCal Plus. That's the producer kit output, and that controls the main output for all the drums. And there's one thing more I want to show you. I'm pulling the mixer back up here, and I got my drums going on. I can add my effects here. So you can still add your effects to the track. So, for example, I can pull up, let's say, let's pull something that's going to be really simple, like some reverb. I'll get the reverb in. And you can hear the reverbs there and everything, right? So you can bring up your reverbs or your effects right here. I wouldn't do the reverbs right here per se, but just a little bit. But I would also add, well, compressors here and EQs already on there. But I mean, a little bit of reverb if I want, a little delay, or whatever you really want to do to get some sort of effect that you think is going to be unique for that drum set. And that's how you would add effects to the overall drum set. Well, now I've got a vocal set up here, and I want to fix these vocals and put them in the same group like I did with the drums in a way. So it's pretty simple to do that, actually. I'm going to go here, I'm going to press Shift, select my tracks. And then what I want to do here is I'm going to go to here, and I want to create a track stack. And here we go. So I can have a summing track stack. Now before we had folders, and we used folders when we did the cycle record with MIDI and cycle record with audio. This is going to be just a summing amp, as you saw earlier with the drum, and we stacked the drums up, and I had the producer kit. Well, we're going to do this actually now by just going in, as you just saw, and create a track stack. I'll say create. Matter of fact, let's click here for details. Let's be even better. You can read your details right here. The multi-purpose track stack that mixes its subtracks and can be saved as a pack. Got that as one pack. This type can also record and play back MIDI or remote controlled recording on audio-only subtracks. So I see the select, we're going to be a fold. And in this case, we're using a sum. And this is the explanation for summing stack. And up here will be the explanation for folder stack. Okay? So we're created. And now it does. We see it says sum right there. This is a sum. This is summation. This is everything right there. So these tracks are all now tied to here. I'll go back to here. You can even name it. I'm going to name it and call it background. BVG. I'll call it stack. Right. And bam. We got it. And it's a background stack track. Now it unfolds and it folds back up. So they're all going to be there. Right. Let's go to mixer now. Let's press Command 2. And we see it right here. This is our mixer for that track right there, right? And if I play back these vocals, you'll see them all right here. I can bring them down right here. But it's the master control for them. See that? So I can control all the vocals, their volume, separately on each track, and then I have the overall master control for the entire group right here, as you can see, right? And so I can also come in here, I can add some sort of effects. I can add a delay. I can add some sort of overall EQ. I already EQ'd already. I may want to add some more EQ. Like a common thing to do in EQ when dealing with vocals is to roll the bass off. I mean, I love to roll the bass off because I want to hear them back. I don't want any bass generally. Not too much bass at all in the lead vocals. Because we already have the bass drum, we got the bass guitar, and whatever else in there is going to sort of mess with that frequency. So you roll the basses off. Once you add a little lightness to it, that vocal stands out everywhere. It's kind of cool. So here I rolled some of the bass off, and we'll play it back.
I don't know what's right and what's
Now there's still some bass
anymore.
that you'll hear from the track itself, because these tracks already have EQs and compressors on them already, right? I just want to roll the overall bass off, see? That makes it a little easier for us. But this lesson is all about making these track stacks. And of course, here you'll see also that I have my panning, which is at the center, but the other individual tracks have separate panning. So they're going to be slightly one way or the other, even though you'll notice here that's fully left. This is fully right. And I can control that, see? And that's how we can create a track stack. But in this case, we do it as a summing stack. Our summation amp is here, which is auxiliary, which says BVG stack, and the vocals for the backgrounds are here in their separate little faders and little tracks within the mixer. Now in this movie, we're going to talk about and show you how you can use your buses to create an auxiliary to add some reverb and delay to your mix. Now you notice here in this demo session from the Fear that we have these vocals going on, right?
I don't know what's right and what's real
and you hear some sort of reverb going on, right? And so we have these buses right here. Now each track has its own tape delay, as you can see right there. So there's some effect already added with a delay on each vocal track. But there's also a reverb. We don't see one here, right? So you'll notice here there's a bus 3, bus 3, bus 3, bus 3, bus 3. And in order for me to find out what that is, I'll click right here. If I click right here on a blank one, and I go here to bus assignments, and I'll see bus 3 is going to a chorus verb. Now that is a summation amp, so they're being bussed out. Imagine a signal on a bus. This is an order signal on a bus. It's going cross town really fast, or just down a block really fast. And it's going into this depot. And there is where the reverb's at. And then that signal goes inside the reverb. So it's just busting it out. So it's a send. And you'll see that here in the mix too as well. Now if I go back here in the mix, and we scroll back down, and I press play,
I don't know what's right and what's
and we'll see
anymore.
we've got this verb going on here. Here it is, this chorus verb. See, it's louder there. I'll bring it down somewhat here. I can open it up here, and here's the reverb, as you can see it right there. So what happens here is that a bus is created, and a separate track, which is an auxiliary track, which you can see here is stereo, this track right here, and it's making it bigger and wider. So we're sending mono tracks into a stereo track to spatialize the sound and make it bigger. So we got this one track going in there, and now it's going left and right and everywhere inside that one reverb unit. So what we did before, we created an overall background fader right here, right? Let's say I wanted to add delay. So I'd go here, I'll click here, I look for a bus, I look for an empty bus. The empty bus is 7. So let's get on that bus right there. I put that bus in there, 7's there, and then back down here, we've created a brand new auxiliary right here. And its bus is 7 right there. So I've created this auxiliary track. I'm going to go in here now, and I want to get a little delay going on. So let's get a designer delay. I just want a simple stereo delay. And let's see what we got here. Maybe let's go with a little echo. That's what I want to get, a little echo going on here, right? And as we can see here, we added some echo to it. Roll it back again, and here's my echo. Here's my controls for that delay. So I can also name this track. So let's call this track, I'm going to call this Echo. Just to make it real simple for us to know what it is. That's Echo. It's bus 7. We're going to roll back here to the vocals again, back here at the top of our track. And there's our vocals right there. Now here's my send for that. You can hear the echo now. So I'm sending this bus, number 7, right into that echo. See? So it's just routing. It's just an audio signal being routed someplace else. Now, a unique feature normally with all mixing boards, particularly analog, is the ability to go post and pre. So post means it's after the fader. So for example, there's no reverb, right? Nothing's going there. So you can see that, right? Nothing's going there whatsoever. That means that that signal that's coming in there is being controlled first by this, my fader. My fader controls everything. So it's post. After the fader, it goes to the bus. And once you click right here, you'll notice that we have this bus 7 echo. And we've got post pan, post fader, pre-fader. I want to go to pre-fader. And so now, I'll pause down. It's still going there, see? So the output from these background tracks is coming through here. And then it comes to the fader. That's a cool effect you can use once in a while. When you want to have something maybe more spatial, more out there, more delayed or reverb or whatever. Let's say using a chorus. And you want to chorus a bass guitar up or something. And you want to have this certain chorus thing happen during this one unique part before the bridge. So the real thing here I'm talking about too is about being creative. I'll teach you a lot of stuff about mixing, but you also have to use your mind to be creative about music and about how you want to present the music to the listener. That's so important. But in this case, I'm showing you how to route out the signal and how to show it in several ways, how to have it come pre-fader or post-fader. Okay, so we're routing signals around, which is typical what we do when recording. Now you'll notice in the last lesson I made a new bus. And then here I already have a lot of stuff going on in these tracks, right? This is from a demo. Now you'll notice there's a lot going on, and what's happening here too is that I have a lot of CPU power. And you may need more as you go along. To check yours, you go right back in here. On your Mac, you go about this Mac, and in case you want to know where it's right here from memory. You look up your memory. Here I have 16 gigabytes of memory, so I have a lot of power to do a lot of processing of plugins if I want to pull them in, and even to have more auxiliaries come in as well. But a really cool feature is having these buses set up so I can just have one bus and route other elements there as well, not just the chorus. I might have a separate part I want to put the main lead vocal and run back through there. And you also notice here we have a bunch of plugins on each track. Well, what happens is the signal comes from the output first, then it comes through here to the pitch correction, then we have this channel EQ to give an EQ to the correction, and then we have a compressor to tighten it up, a limiter so it won't get too loud, a tape delay to have a slight delay inside the mix, and then we have this EQ again for the output of everything else, and a gain to increase or decrease the output of all these effects coming out. And then they're all routed again through bus 3 out to that reverb. So be aware of that too as well. Make sure you know where your bus assignments are and where everything's being routed to. Now sometimes the mix can get complicated. You may have done a lot throughout the mix, you stopped, came back the next day, you're doing something else, you wake up in the middle of the night, you do 2 things, and before you know it, you got so many buses, you know where they're going at. And you haven't named everything. So an easy way to do this is to go back in. If you're not sure, like for example, this says bus number 7. I'll double click here and look what happens. It takes you right to bus number 7 here at the end of my channel strip here for the mixer. And we see bus number 7 is going to my echo here. And we see I have an echo insert on that track. Now if I go to here, we'll say, and pull my vocals back up, I got the vocals. It says bus 5. Oh, where's bus 5? I click on that. This is bus 5 right here. Bus 5 is my background vocal stack. Now see bus 5 appears there on the top of this auxiliary input. So it's a great way if you're missing something, you're not too sure where it's at, you can get to it. and it makes it easier when you have a lot of stuff to deal with. Of course, you can see here that this bus 5 is going to an auxiliary, but everything else is going to the stereo output. So the stereo output is a summation amp. The stereo output right here is a summation. That means everything comes, it's the sum of everything comes right there. And all the outputs are going to head there. And you notice that too, for all these buses, they're going there. Like my echo right here, it's getting information in, but when it gets out, it's going output to hear this master out. And that's my stereo output. In this movie, we're going to talk about and deal with automation. Now, automation happens in a mix, we'll say. The vocalist is singing in the beginning. Then a bass drum comes in. Then a snare. Then a bass line. Keyboards. Then a pounding double bass drum, and the music starts all of a sudden. That's automation. You've heard it before. Music comes in, music comes out, perfect spot every time. Even guys do remixes. Wait a minute, it's different than before. They've got automation going on. They're bringing new parts in and flipping them back out. We're going to do automation now with Logic. It's pretty simple. We're starting from our main mixer, and I'll press A on my keyboard. It opens up. I have a track selected already, and that track you see is called the voice lead. Now you'll see here I've got this thing pretty much squashed down so you can see it. I'm going to sort of spread out a little more, press Command, and going to hit on my right arrow, and we can see the waveform much better, right? I've got my cycle mode set up here, which is always good to do. And we can see we've got vocals here. So in order to set up automation, since we're open here and we went to A, you'll see this button is now turned to, I guess a yellowish orange. And it's enabled automation. I can turn it on or off, right? See that? Once I do, you notice here it says read. That's been grayed out. Now this is read. So this is read, touch, latch, and write. Here we have volume. This is the parameter in automation that I can attenuate right now. Now you'll see I can hit this, and now we see other parts. We can do panning, see, or display off right here, right? And there's also a pitch correction. There's a EQ. There's a compressor. There's a exciter. There's a tape delay. And there's more EQ and a gain. But also you'll notice there are parameters for it. So we can automate everything. Every little parameter of all those plugins can be automated as well. And this is considered to be an automation lane right now. This is audio. I just click right here, and what happens, it starts me off. Right there. Let me sort of squeeze it back down a little bit more. And you'll see this little one dot there, that's called a node. Okay? And so I can come here, make another dot. I'll make a dot here, make a dot there. Pull this one down to here. Whoops, I changed the vocal. Let me hear that back.
I wanna be rich.
So it went down and up. Well, let me bring it down further. Get a more effect to it. And oops, see what happened? When I dragged over, it erased the node previously to it. So let's move back here. It brought the node right back. See that? I can go to here and pull this up, and then go to here and pull this down. I can make more nodes in here. I can pull this node this way, pull that node that way. And once I did erase the other node, no, I just pull it back out. I can go to here, pull it up, pull this node here, and let's create more nodes. I can also go in to my pencil tool and watch this. I can just drag all around here and make a whole bunch of nodes. It's kind of cool. I can go to here and just sort of like make a node here and then sort of like make this go like that with the pencil tool like this. And now I'm creating a lot of nodes. But every time I go backwards, if I go back, I erase nodes. But I'm going to go forwards, you're going to add more nodes. See that? I just keep going forward. I keep adding more nodes up and down forward. I made a lot of nodes right there. So we can correct that too anytime you want. Just pick a node you want to get. You can, or get your eraser tool. Let's go back to eraser. Pull my eraser tool up. Let's erase some nodes. This is pretty much simple and easy to do. You can take your time and get every part of that vocal part right. Now let's say I go back here and I play it back.
I wanna be rich and I want lots of money.
You heard it go up right there, right? So it went all the way up right there, right? Now I can also go back in here. I can get my S curve. Let me get my automation tool here. Here's my automation curve tool, right? So I can get in here and do like this. I can go like, let me get up here and get this automation tool working on one of these things here. Let's see what we can get here. See, I'm turning down. I'm sort of making a little S curve, S right there. Let's move a little bit more. And here. See, I can make an S there as well. I can make a little, that's not curved, but this one is a little bit. So I can curve that too as well. You can make little curves inside the mix. I can go back in here again, and I want to get my erase tool. I can just drag along and erase a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just dragging and erasing a lot of things right there. I'll go back in here and get my S tool again. Just pull your tool up. As long as you know what you're doing, you can see that? It's more parabolic, but still linear. And then I can listen to my mix over again. So this is a great way to work within Logic to fix those vocals up with a too loud or too soft, but also it works for any track in your Logic mixer, or for this example, for your main window. Now you notice too that once I play it back from the top, you'll see this go up and down. And if I pull up the fader, you'll see the fader here on the extreme left going up and down. So you can see your mix. You can know what's going on. Now I've got volume. I might want some panning. I'm going to click on this triangle here, see what we get. And here we go. We got panning. And that's how it works, because that's the next option down. Once you go here to this list, our next option down is panning. That's all there is. We're already on volume, so panning is right here. And you do the same thing here. You come here, click right there on the track, and now we have panning. I can move it back to the top of the track where I'm at here. I'll put a note here, but I need to get myself the right tool. I'm going to get our little pointer tool here. I'll click here. I got a node. I'm going to put a node in front of here. Remember, panning works just back and forth, right? So I'm going to put a node right here, and I want to go up right there. And then I may want to put a node right here, and one right there, and then I want to go down. So I make a node first. There's a node, and then come right down right here. And now I've got some panning going on. A little back and forth thing. I want to hear it back a little bit.
I wanna be rich and I want lots
Back in
of
the middle.
money. I don't care
Then there we go, back to the right.
about fun.
So up is left, right is down. And the middle is the center. And here it's off center. You don't have to even tell you that. That's +1 to the right. If I move it up here, that's -1. That means we're going to the left. And that's how we can set up our panning here. If I click right there, that node, right there, that says -64. You can see that, right? Got my panning, got the vocal. Suppose I want to do something else. It's pretty simple. I go right here. I may want to change the gain. I want to go to the tape delay and change the delay time. I select that, and I've got it right here. I'm ready to go. There it is right there. And you notice also you'll faintly see this volume in the background there, right? For the lead vocal. Let me go back here, put the lead vocal back in for the volume. There, and those parameters are still there. See that? So what I really want to do is create a new automation lane, okay? To do that, you just go right here. The last lane was panning. The next one's going to be right here. I just press this plus sign button, and we get a new lane. It gave me volume again. I don't want that. So I go back here. I'm going to look for my phone. I'm looking for the right thing here. I want to get maybe this delay. And I want to get delay time. I come back here. I pull it up. Here's my delay time. It gives me the delay time. I can click right here. And I can do this very same thing within the track. Make sure my track's selected. Click right here and I can add my delay time right here. And change that delay time. See that? I can change the delay time anytime I want within this mix. So it's important to understand also that once you can do that, you can just pull up a pencil and sort of write information in if you want to. Right and click. I just pull a pencil up and just start writing what my delay times will be. They're going to go to here, and it can go to here, and I'm writing in delay times. I want this delay to be like that. Wow, and go back down here and bring the delay down to here. And I'll play it back from the top.
I wanna be rich and I want lots of money. I don't care about clever.
And you hear it sounds weird there, but it's just an exaggeration to give you an idea that I can change any parameter that I have within Logic. So I can change my plugin parameters, I can change the panning and the volume as well for any individual track. Now, that was automation when I just wrote it in, right? And of course, we know to enable this button here, we must turn on our show and hide automation in our main window. And then we can see this automation button for each track in our mixer. So here, once I press this button, you'll notice that this one here, the read on the channel strip track, shows green. I can turn on off here too as well. See that? And I have three other options here. We have touch, latch, and write. Now, I'm in read right now. Now, if you notice, I pull the fader. You pull your fader up and down, you're affecting the level, volume level of that track. That's selected there in read. So what I can do is I can write the automation in. So I'm in read. My parameter is the volume. So next I'll do is I'm going to press play. But first, I'm going to go to touch. And now I'll press play.
I wanna be rich and
As I move the fader down, you'll notice that it's creating nodes. Move up and down, I go down further, lower, lower, up. Then I let go, it went right back to where it was at. So once I stopped doing my automation, I let go of the fader, it went back to where the previous automation was at, which currently was actually at just that same height I had there. As you can see, compared to the beginning height and to the end, what I automated is only here in the middle. That's touch mode. So if I continue from here,
I wanna be rich and I want lots of money.
I bring it down.
I don't care about clever.
It does. If I stop, it keeps the old automation. I move it again, I touched it, and here I pull it down again, and then that's just touch. That's touch mode. Now below touch we have latch. Now this is latch. I go to latch right here. And what I can do is I can add to the automation, but it will stay where it's at. It won't use anything else from the old automation. It'll keep creating new automation as we go along. So press play.
I wanna be rich and I want lots of money. I don't care about clever. I don't care
I leave
about
it there,
funny.
and it's just getting rid of everything else. I'll go down, it'll stay there. I go lower, it'll stay there. And once I stop, anything after that will be the same level it was before. So latch means once it latches in, it's going to continue on from that point on and erase any previous automation after it gets there, as you can just see. Now, I can go back in here.
I wanna be rich and I want lots of money.
I can grab the pan control now. Look what happened. It went to panning automatically.
I want loads of clothes. I want loads of diamonds. I heard people die while they're trying to find them. And I'll take my clothes.
So I can be doing fader levels, then I can go to do a pan level at the same time. That's important to realize that you might be able to just hear the volume and say, wait a minute, I want to change the panning too. That's kind of cool with this system within Logic. Now next we have the most heavy of them all. That's the write. When you start writing, you are writing from the top down, and there's a warning that comes up. It's warning you, look, write mode erases multiple parameters in one go without touching anything. In most cases, it's better to use latch or touch. Be aware of that, okay? Because once you start, it's going to start wiping out everything you possibly ever did. So you got to be aware of how to and when to use the write. So I press OK because I know what I'm doing, I think. And you can see here, there's write, and now it's purple. You can see that plainly right there. It's just to come at you with a purple color. Okay, so if I go from the top now, it's going to start writing everything over. And I go.
I wanna be rich.
So he's writing the volume over.
Lots of money. I don't care about
Look at the
clever.
panning.
I don't care about
Writing the
funny.
panning
I
over.
want loads of clothes.
It's
I
writing
want loads of
everything over. Look at that.
diamonds. I heard people die while they're trying to find them.
So my suggestion to you, when you're going to write, pick your parameter you're going to write down with, and then pick that parameter and start writing it in. Then you want to go back to touch. Now you see, once you stop writing, the software goes right back to touch. That's cool. Touch is one of the safest modes. The most safe mode, of course, is just read. But touch is a mode that it requires you to touch something in order for the software to write that automation in. And once you let go, it continues on the way it was. So touch is the safest mode while actually in this automation mode here. So if I want to write, though, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go back here to panning, to volume, which is no need really, but I'm just going to do this for your purpose so you can see it. And then we're going to go back here.
I wanna be rich and I want lots of money.
I can write this in. I'm going lower. I go back up. I go lower, up. I leave it there. It picks up where it was at. See that? And from here,
I wanna be rich and I want
that's
lots
touch.
of money.
So here I'm going to go back to write now. I'm going to write. Now write.
I wanna be rich and I want
I just leave it there.
lots of
It'll stay
money.
there. It'll just keep writing the way it's at. I'll leave it here, right where it's at.
I want loads of clothes.
I'll leave it here,
I
right
want
where it's
loads of
at.
diamonds.
I'll leave it there, it stays there. I'll leave it here, it stays there. I stop it, it stays there. I continue on to start writing. It'll do the same thing. So that's a difference. But once I leave write, it goes to touch. Now earlier you saw I was in write, and once I stopped, it went back to touch. Sometimes you get confused too, so be aware of it. You're going to look for it. And make sure you want to go to write, you go directly to write. And I'm going to turn cycle mode off because it's going to get me really not where I want to be at, but I may want to move it to right here. And I can move my playback head anywhere. And I start writing right here. I left it alone. Now I want to bring it back up. And I pull this down and go up and pull down and stop it. And then I let it play on, and it still continues on at that same position. And because I stopped it, though, you see we're now in touch. Now, when you're creating your mix, sometimes, I've seen this in many sessions, guys start using plugins and EQs and pulling out machines. And a lot of times, some instruments are just natural the way they sound. And there's no need to EQ something that sounds natural. And then you starting getting so many EQs, you're changing the true dynamic of that instrument. Like you don't want to EQ too many acoustic guitars, providing the guitar player is pretty good and he's got a really nice instrument and you've got a great miking, it's cool. And if you got a fat drum machine, so you put an MPC in and the producer brings this rap beat in, it's hot, light, loving it, loving the beat. Primarily, I'm just trying to just compress and maybe get out any kind of noise that comes from a machine. But overuse of plugins is crazy. You're going to go too far and you're going to apply too many things. Like, for example, here in this mix, I see a lot of EQs, but I like to run through them. And when you do in Logic, you'll be able to just click on the thumbnail picture that you see on the top of each channel track. And you can look at that picture, get an idea. Like, for example, here, we're looking at a minus 24 dB at about 148 hertz. So you want to look and see further on throughout the rest of these EQs that there's a lot of bass being taken out. And then I start looking at the track, oh great. As you can see, the bass is coming out of the vocals. And that's what I normally do, and I prefer that myself. Because a lot of vocals don't need the bass. They just need the more of the natural sound. Now, also, I go back here, my vocoder. We took some highs out here. You'll see this here, some highs, as that rounds out right there. Right around 10K. And then here, there's some low mids taken out here, around 290 hertz. So here we'll scroll further down, and you'll see there's EQs almost everywhere here on this track, right? But some things don't need, like here's Street. This may not even need an EQ. So some things really don't need EQ. But if you think they do, you can add them. And you'll see here also some compression here. Now, compression is different. You can use compression, but you need to know when to use it and where to use it. Now, a lot of guys use it on drums a lot. So I'm going to go back over here to our drum tracks. And we'll see these tom-toms you see here, of course. And we got this kick drum. And as we told you before, sometimes you want to just EQ that sound, then apply compression, then apply EQ after the compression. That's what happens here in the kick drum. Because a kick drum is going to have a really strong sound somewhere in the middle. So you'll see it here and some in the end. So here we got a kick drum, and then we sort of attenuated the, let's see, that's got to be 80 hertz here. That's 0 dB, right? And then here at 90 hertz, it's 10 dB up. Right there. So get a little more punch out the drum somewhat. Now, a clever thing to do also, if you want to get some other EQ settings, is to go to the presets. All the presets are really great, but they're a good starting place for you to say, okay, this is what I want to do. For example, if I go to here, I want that kick drum to be punchy, I'll pull up this punch kick drum and I'll see here that this is where the kick drum gets punchy, right around here. And you notice here that right here at about 4,550 hertz there, about that's 4K, yeah, about that's up by 9 dB. And here reducing the dB at 500 hertz to get more of a punchy sound. So you can look over some of these presets. They're not a standard to say I'm going to use it this way, but start from there and build around it. So here, I'm making a comparison now. Now I've got this punch kick drum set up here. I've sold the kick drum out, and I want to go back in here and get an idea. Let's sort of get a little more volume so you can hear it better. And you'll see here how you can just sort of change the EQ somewhat and find out what works best for that bass drum. And this is what I'm talking about. You might get a plug-in, and then you're going to pull in a preset, and you just can't mix it by itself. You need to probably pull in a snare drum and figure out how's that going to work. Now I'll pull the snare drum down slightly. Now, if I like it, that's cool, but I like to make a comparison, so I'll use that for now. And I go back to drums here. I'm going to look for a clean, here we go, clean up kick. See, that's much more deeper. Now, not because it's deep, am I going to like it, but that's a deeper sound. So that deeper sound, I like a deep kick drum mainly in like hip hop music and some really hardcore rock band might have a really good big kick drum. But in this case, and dance too as well, in this case, this is a little bit too big for the sort of like poppy song going on here. But you want to make comparisons between what you like and what you think you might like in order to get the right sound. Here's a refresh kick drum. So you hear there's not much low end here, right? And the mid-range is about gone. And normally I don't think there's much real high end in a kick drum. I like it more like there rather than up here. See that? Too many highs. Now for a pop sound, this is what I would like. But I took a preset, listened back, compared it to my snare drum, and I want to get this attack back and forth where this punch is going on. The bottom and that snap from that snare drum. Next, we'll look at the snare drum. I want to look at this snare drum now, and so I'm going to mute the kick. And there are some plugins here already. I have to go clean, so I take everything off first and go real clean. Oh, now I know what I'm working with. See that? I know what I'm working with here now. So we see we've got this stereo thing going on, right? And this is my snare drum. So we got a compressor going on here first. So we're sort of compressing the track up somewhat, right? I'll go back to manual here. Look at drums. I want to look at something for a snare. Here's a Vca Compression. Oh God, that's ridiculously too much, so we don't like that. So I'm going to pull this down, get the threshold level down somewhat here too. I want to sort of squash this thing down a little more. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That's more like what I want to hear. So I'm just going through here, getting some ideas going on. I want to get some more snap out this thing somewhere. So here, where your snap is going to be somewhere near here, but let's pull up this EQ plugin and look for some sort of snare thing we could use. So here's a rim snare. Find another snare. Let's look for something else now. There's a ring snare. We got a rock snare. Like it, but that snare still sounds synthetic. Don't like the synthetic sound. So we're going to roll back here and look for a standard snare EQ. This is good enough for the synthetic sound we already have already. Now at this point, we're going blind. We just have a snare drum, right? So we don't want that. Let's bring that kick drum back in. You want to get this boom bap going on. We always talk about this in the studio. This boom and the bap. It's the most important part. If you listen to anybody in any of these little shows about music, I love the beat. I love the beat. I think people don't even hear anything else because the beat, they can feel the beat. And the most important part of your mix, I don't care if it's slow or fast, is that people have got to feel what's going on. And the most important part, the basic part of all human understanding is the rhythm. So here, even the cadence in your voice provides one or the other. Okay, we got it going on now. And so you always click here too. Now right there gives me a reading of what that level is, the output, right? So I'm gonna bring this down a little bit more. I want to hear a hi-hat now because now I'm really in a weird zone. Okay, good. I got understanding. I can put this bass back in. And a second EQ here. And now again. That gain's a gain reduction. So there's a reduction sometimes you may want to apply. If it's too loud, that's one point. After adding an EQ, you can put this gain reduction in. But in my case, now I got a comparison here. Now I think my snare's a little sharper. I want to go back in and find something else, like a clap here. Now I want to compare the clap with this. So I've got two things going on. I got a clap and I have the snare. You'll notice also the clap is pretty much heavy to the left. And the snare's a little bit heavy to the right. So I want to sort of make that a little cleaner. Definition is the most important. And we'll keep the kick drum straight dead center. Now at this point, I want to add some gain. But for the kick drum. That's too much, obviously. Okay, and clean that up. And you want to get this balance going on between the kick, snare, and the hi-hats. Not bad. Now, we've been dealing with kick drum and snare drum. It's kind of cool, but there are other elements here in the mix. And a lot of times we're going to have a hi-hat, maybe two. So for example, here I've got two. Let me cut the clap off. I have a shaker-like element here too. Two of them, see? Here's one hi-hat and this other one. So, they're going to get in the way. Somehow they will. I prefer to keep my panning in a way where you can differentiate between the both, but they can blend. These two won't blend. One has a metallic sound. One has a sort of synthesized computer sound. More or less cheap drum machine sound to me. So So I bring in this other sound, sort of a shaker in a remix. I want to pan this one too. So I pan a little bit here, and I'll pan this other one over to the other side a little bit, just a little bit. And you notice it's a little bit more volume on the right with one hi-hat and a little more volume on the left. Now they're both stereo. So we're sort of like squeezing the stereo field down a little bit. And of course, my little shaker here is almost on. Now to bring my snare drum in. And the reason why I do that because the snare drum has a higher sound. You know, its pitch compared to the other elements. Not as high as the tambourines, or as high as rather these hi-hats and little shaker type thing. But it's important that its pitch shines through. Now the bass drum, you know, is going to shine through. The bass drum is the bass drum. But we don't want too much of all this other high-end stuff going on, right? It should be some sort of idea. It's there, but not in a way. Adding more to the rhythm. We bring our clap in now. And it's important to turn some of these elements off in our rhythm section to make sure some things stand out, some things don't. Got some tom-toms here. Got a crash here somewhere. So I've got some effects. Turn these effects off. Turn this effect off here. That's going to get our sound as flat as possible and get a really good, strong, punchy, strong drum beat going on. Even if it's a slow jam, you want to make sure that that rhythm section is hot. So that when you bring the bass in and you build around the bass, the drums, the guitar, any other string instruments, and also the keyboards, you're building on a strong foundation. Bring the bass in a little bit now. Get a balance going on here. The main problem that happens with bass and kick drum, they are the only bass instruments probably in your mix. And if you're doing reggae, you're going to have one more bass hill, or maybe a really deep 808 bass drum, or a club. The problem here is that bass frequencies of the same characteristics will cancel each other out, and you don't want that. So you got to turn everything else off at this point and get to the point, once you get a decent enough rhythm section going on, you want to compare the bass drum and the bass instrument and make sure they can live together on the track. Now in this movie, we're going to deal with the bass in the track. Now there's a bass that's a kick drum, boom. And then there's a bass that's a bass line. So we want to make sure that there's no collision. Now the problem in mixing or anything is sounds or instruments with the same frequency tend to cancel each other out. If you get someone to sing a vocal and they sing it perfect the second time, or you line it up perfect on the track the second time, you'll notice there's a cancellation effect going on, which ain't good. Here we go. See, we can hear the punch here. Now, the beauty in Logic is we have these thumbnail pictures of the EQs. So we get an idea of what's going on. So in this case, I'm going to lower the bass and make a comparison now. So I have a comparison I'm making between the kick drum and bass drum. And so far, what I'm hearing is there are some similarities. So I've got two bass tracks here. I got this fuzz bass. That's not going to be a problem because I'm going to pull that down totally. Okay, great. So I'll keep that out. Keep this one out too. But this one here, these two are punchy. One's filtered and one's just a dB'd one. So here in the kick drum, I want my kick drum to stand out a little bit more. See what I'm moving this around. It's like a little mountain. And so I'm sort of cueing in on the right frequency. See, right there, they're too much together. Right here, see the canceling right now? That's, no, every now and then they tend to cancel. That's around 39 hertz. And here I can eliminate the 39 hertz right there. I can either boost that frequency or eliminate it. See that? Go up or down. I can widen it out more here. Now I'm really widening it out. So now I'm getting rid of that frequency on the kick drum. So what I'm showing you here is you can either boost it or cut that frequency. In this case, I just want more punch. Now I got more punch on the kick drum. And no matter what that bass line does, that kick drum is solid. And you can tell the difference. And the best way to do that is to turn it off. Now, we might be going too far. You never know. Bring back your hi-hat. Bring back your snare drum. Stay within the parameters of your mix. Do not get outside of that. Then bring the bass line back in. Get that feel going. You've got to have it right. Then get the balance going on, where you can bring the bass line up and still hear the kick drum. That's not too bad. Okay, I want to bring down this a little bit here. Okay, I want the element to be just underneath everything else, not too much in the way. Just a hint that that little shaker thing's happening, because it'll be really annoying after a while. Okay, we got an idea now. We got a bass, and we have this great thing going on with the drums. Now, once you get that happening, you can build them at anything, because it's important to get your rhythm section tight. So I've added some more things here into the mix. And one of the most important things to do in the studio is make sure you can hear every instrument, every element of every sound of every instrument in the mix. Now, I've been in a lot of studios, been through a lot of sessions, and playing music loud is the dumbest thing to really do. You need to hear them on near-field monitors. If you don't have some, get some. Get some nice ones, some cheap ones. You can have the big sound. You can go back and forth between the two. But you've got to be able to hear everything from the person opening their mouth in the backgrounds. You've got to have big ears. That's what makes mixing fun and makes it great when someone hears it and they love it. And the important thing I want to talk about too is this. As I listen back to this mix, and I could be in a room, someone might say, make this louder. Or the artist will say, make my vocals louder. Now, that's good if they want to hear the vocals louder. So normally people go and raise a little level of vocals up. You've got to realize that you're in a room. You're always in a room, unless you're outside. And in that room, when you're talking, you're not talking real loud. If you do, the sound goes too far to the ceiling, right? And we have no headroom. This is what headroom's about. We've got no head in this room. So the sound must go from your mouth and then go out to reverberate against the walls from one direction or the other. And the same happens on a mixing board. We've got to make sure there's headroom where nothing's pounding. As you can see here in this mix, from the master fader right here, you'll notice that this master, I'll click here for the master, bring my master back in. I just want to see my master here. It's my master, right? I can put all the tracks back in. And you'll see my master here. So I go back to the end here. Here's my master right here, the master output. And you'll see it here. It's not going above 0 dB. See that? It's right there. Now between 0 dB and -3 and -6 and -9, there's my headroom. I want to keep that headroom in there. You don't want to keep raising. So it's a normal thing. Here's what you need to do. If someone wants to raise something and you're in a mix, or you want to raise something, the smart thing to do is lower everything else. Now that's why we make submixes. We have the drums controlled by one fader. We got the vocals or the backgrounds by one fader, or my keyboards by 1 or 2 faders. I can bring everything else down and you will hear what you want to hear louder. So it's important to keep your headroom alive. Now you can see here, right where I'm at here with the fader, I'm going to go higher and higher. Okay, you see it went into the red? I don't want to go into the red. I don't want your mix going into the red. You can go from the green to the yellow. This is common in most mixing boards. I haven't seen the color change ever. Green is okay. Yellow, it's not too bad. Once you start approaching red, you don't need to be there, okay? And the reality is that I'll play it back again. I'll pull it down. I don't want to be anywhere between 0 and -3. I wouldn't mind going back to -4. You'll see this readout right here. It'll tell you where you are. I'll click on it again. That clears the readout. We'll play it back again. Now I know that I'm at -5.9 dB. I'll raise it a little bit more. And you want to do this to the entire song. You want to hear from the beginning to the end. You want to make sure you stay within this framework. Now, if you get to this point and you want to hear something louder, do what I told you to do. You turn everything else down a little bit, maybe by that 1 dB, and you might hear that other sound real loud then. That means there's no balance in your mix somewhere. So it's important to be balanced, to understand that all the sounds have to be in their natural world. Like the guitar must sound like a guitar. A bass should have that bass sound. A trumpet should like a trumpet. But you want to make sure also that they're not too loud. Not too much position left or right in your mix. So it's important to keep the headroom alive. Depending on the CPU speed and the processing power of your Mac, you're never sure sometimes on whether a session is going to load up properly or is it going to slow down. And it's important to know how much power you do have on your machine and whether it can take it or not. Now I'm going to close the mixer window up here and we're going to look at this window right here, our main window. And here you'll notice I already have going on here, I've got the custom display. If you don't see it, you're going to click right here and you're going to go to custom. So you can scroll here actually, you can go to here, that's just custom display. Or I can come here and I want to select it, I'm going to custom display right here. Now I'll play back from here. And you notice here, the CPU power is like really way up there, right? And as I stop, it's coming right back down. It's coming down again. And I'm not having a problem, but if you do have a problem, what will happen is the Logic software will tell you the CPU usage is way too high. And your computer's not going to break up or have a problem, but it's letting you know that you may need to increase that. And the best way to do that is to go over here to Preferences. We're going to go to Audio. Now here in Audio before, when we were doing vocals, we kept our buffer size low, right? Keeping it low because we want to make sure we have low latency. But we're not recording vocals right now. We're mixing. So what we want to do is get the maximum power from our machine. So now I'm going to go to 1024 samples. You'll notice the resulting latency now is 50.4 milliseconds. In a round trip, that's 25.6 output and 25.6 input, right? And you'll see that happen. Say, well, look, that's going to improve it because we're going to be able to use more CPU power. Now, when you're recording vocals, I tell you what I prefer you to do is to get down about maybe 128 samples, right? But in this case, when you're mixing, make sure your buffer size is large enough to use all the power. Now also, you're using these big plugins they have in here. There's reverb, there's the delays, and you start using all the plugins. This is going to start making things inside your mix sort of sound like they're out of phase, out of sync. What you need to do is go to General now, and we have this plugin latency here. Now, this is selected to all. The other option here is audio and software instrument tracks only, but it's selected to all so that even when I have a reverb and a delay on my vocals, I don't want to have this latency happen in the mix where it's like the vocal comes in a little late or ahead of the mix somewhere. You want to compensate for that. And that's what the plug-in latency does right here. It's going to make sure that's plugged in and that's working. So then when you're mixing and you're playing back, it's going to say, okay, look, we're doing it. Now, once I try to close it, it's going to initialize the core audio and let it know, well, look, these are the settings that are going on, and we're going to make sure that everything works out perfectly. Okay? Now, it says the previous selected audio interface is not available. I'm not worried about that. I have a different setup going now. And now I'll play back. And you'll see my CPU has come down somewhat there, right? And there's hardly any hard drive problems right there. None whatsoever. So this is the most important part of doing with computers, is making sure that you have no latency, making sure that all the plugins you're using are working properly. Well, you may have checked it out, and you may still have some problem using your CPU. Or you're not sure, and you want to conserve some power. There's a cool way Logic has set up for you to do that. Now, for example, I got this piano here. Which one do I want to use here? We got this one right here on top. And I'll play it back. I got that piano there right now. Suppose, for example, I want to just conserve my power, right? We're going to go right here, and we're going to configure track header. Now this list comes up right here. What we can do is we could freeze. We could freeze an entire track. And this is very helpful. I'll select freeze. The header configuration just changed. It added this freeze button right there. See that button there? You put your cursor there, it says freeze. What it does, it sets it up so that track can be frozen. So I select the track right here, and now I can use the freeze. Now what happens here in the freeze is that I can select freeze for this track. Let's move back here. Well, let's play it from the top. I'll go to freeze, and now I'll play it. And what happens is that Logic goes in, looks at the entire track, makes a brand new file of that entire track, of that one sound, with its effects, including this pedal, the amp, the tape delay, the compression, the simple delay, and the gain. And it makes a brand new track of it, which is kind of cool. But you don't see it. It's rendered inside the system. Now when I play it back, it won't use any of my plugins, which will save on processing power. Now this is a cool way to actually keep everything you've got, all the plugins, and be able to still use what you have and make a great mix out of it. Because Logic has the files rendered already, and you just play it back. And you're using less power. So it renders it internally and it brings it back up. But let's say you want to go back in again and fix something. You can. You take the freeze button off. Let's say I want to go back in here and I want to change my delay. I click on here, delay. I say I want to change this here and I want to get just a little more right there. Okay? I'll do that. It's changed. I go back to freeze. I hit play. And what happens is Logic goes back in again. Okay, I got the idea. You changed something in your plugin setup and you went back to freeze again. It's going to make a brand new frozen track I can use, and this audio file will come up as I mix down. This way, Logic keeps us going even if we don't have such a great CPU power or a hard drive on our system. You can still make great mixes. A common practice when mixing in a computer or in a real studio is to apply some sort of EQ to your final mix output. So for example, here we have our master output, right? And if I play my track back, it's pretty loud right there. But what I want to do is I want to glue it together. I've got EQs everywhere on the keyboards, the bass, to get the right sonic quality of them. And then I want to have this overall EQ for the master output. So we're going to go right here. We'll get plugins. We'll look for an EQ. And here I want to get this linear phase EQ. And we'll click on that and pull it up. And here we go. We got a linear phase EQ right here, right? And I can pull up some mastering stuff here. Go to mastering, and we've got some blends here. We can have a ballad. We got dance music type EQ. We've got the final dance mix. A bunch here. I'm going to make this as more like I guess a hip-hop feel I want to have on the drums maybe. So I'll go to that for right now. And I get this one. I play back a little bit. So now I'm going to turn it off and play it back. Now I'm going to turn it off and on while playing it back. Now you get the idea. We get some more definition. This is a final phase EQ. It's a really nice EQ, as you can see. Before, everything's just really out there. Once I add this EQ to it, I get more definition. Now, once you use this linear phase EQ and you use it, you're going to have to maybe go back in and you might want to change some things, because then you might get a better idea of what it sounds like going through this EQ. But I prefer to use linear phase EQ once I get to a certain point in the mix, and then check out how my mix sounds. And put this on your master output. Now, after the EQ, I want to add a compressor. And you've probably seen this before many times, or you've heard about it, I guess, even going through YouTube. But here, we're going to add a multi-compressor. Now, the beauty of a multi-compressor, it's not just one band. There are multiple bands. There's a low end, there's a mid end, there's the high mid, and then there's the high end. We have these different ranges we need to compress and sort of let it have that feel without getting too loud. And that's really important in the mix. So what I'll go down here, as you can see, it looks kind of complicated, right? So I'm going to go here to some presets they have here. And I'm looking for something I think that'll match up for what I'm doing here. So we're looking for some presets they have. We got punchy, we got wide, we got hard, a final hip-hop compressor. And this comes up, and we get this kind of hip-hop compressor going on. And we'll hear it back. I'll turn it off. Off again. Back on. Okay, you probably got the idea now. It's loud enough. You can see that it's some more of this punch to the high end, a little more to the bottom, a little more brightness going on. So you've got to really adjust between these two, the EQ and the multi-compressor, to get the sound you might want. Now what I'll tend to do is I'll get to a point in the mix, I'll apply my linear EQ, and then I'll apply the multi-compressor. And then I'll sort of adjust them as I go along. But what I really want to adjust are the elements in the mix, the drums and the snare, how they affect the vocals. and then make sure when I go back and start readjusting my mix, now I have a really good idea of how the overall sound's going to be with the compressor and the EQ. Now I'll play it back a little bit. Not bad. And so I want to probably add a mastering plugin on here, and I want to add a limiter up here. Now I want to tell you about one thing. You're never going to be able to have it sound like you think you can have it sound, where it sounds this totally awesome thing going on, where wow, it sounds great and I'm loving the way it sounds. You know, the problem is that in major studios, they mix it, but they still send it to a mastering facility. And labels pay for someone who masters a lot of records up to master it up to get every frequency right, so when it plays in a car, in a club, or on the radio, it still sounds great. Now the best thing you can do to do a home mastering is to add this linear phase EQ, a multi-compressor, and this device. This is a limiter, an adaptive limiter. We want to make sure that we limit certain parts of the mix so don't get too loud, or make sure that the entire mix doesn't get above a certain area. Like for example here, this says 0 dB. My fader says 0 dB. If I go to 0 dB, I'm going to be too loud. So what I want to do is I want to go minus 0.10 dB. That way we're never going to go above it. It's a limiter. It's going to limit it. It's going to say, look, you can't go here. We're only going there. Now I can pull up a factory preset. And I prefer to do that actually most of the time. We've got soft limiter here. We've got overdrive, and we got average limiter. And you can pull that up. And it helps you a lot too. These are some presets they already have. But you also have here this way to adjust it yourself. To look at these parameters and adjust it. Now, you're probably starting out, if you are, to do this, and I suggest you probably do a lot of mixing, and then do a couple of bounce downs to get an idea of how it sounds. But in this case, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to look at these presets, and I'm going to pull up probably an average limiter. And here you'll see it took out my dB, so I'm going to go back to my dB, get this minus 1 dB, and play it back. Now you heard it got thick right there, really nice and thick, and it just sort of squashed it up a little bit, but gave it a much more thicker sound. Now here we have our gain. I can reduce my gain too. I mean, I want too much gain, so play it back. Pull my gain down. And the best way to deal with the limiter is to turn it off and on as we did with the compressor and the EQ, and hear it back. Stop the music, then play it back again. And get an idea of what's going on. Adjust your mix. And this way you can get at least a really decent sound without having to go to a mastering facility first, and get an idea of how it really should sound when you're going to mix it and get it right. Now right above our gain, right above the gain here, we've got our input scale. And you don't want to get this too loud. And you notice one thing also, that the compressor is working really well, and so is this limiter, because we're not going above minus 1 dB. Now, when you hear songs on the radio, and you hear them go from Lady Gaga to the softest song possible, a ballad, and you wonder, well, that sounds great. Well, what's going on? They have a limiter. There's a limiter on the radio station. They have a limiter and a compressor there. They want to make sure, no matter what this DJ plays, it's going to be consistent, so no one tunes out to put the commercials on. And that's why you notice sometimes the commercials will be a little bit louder. It's all planned that way, really, even on TV. And we have these compressors and limiters, and we use them in this way in order to get that proper level for the signal coming in to the system. So I'll play it back again. Okay, that sounds much better. Now if I go louder, you'll notice here it says over. It's telling you it's over. And that's the margin. That's 0.9 dB over. Now you'll notice also in the master fader, it never went over that. It's telling you we're squashing the mix. You do not want to squash your mix. You want to get enough headroom in there, and it's got to feel like you hear everything in there, and you have your headroom, but you're not squashing the mix. After spending so much time mixing and getting it right, or in the beginning just putting the chords down, bringing the singers in, you spend a lot of time trying to get everything perfect. And then, in today's world, you don't need a record or even a CD most times. You need a file you can use to put in iTunes, or maybe put in SoundClick, or to send someone to help you with your mixing. Well, it's pretty easy here in Logic. As a matter of fact, I love it a lot. So what you can do is you can go right here to File, and you can go to Bounce. Now, this is just one way. I can go here and go to Bounce Project. See that? That's pretty cool. Let's cancel that. Or press Command B to bounce project. Or I can go right here on my master fader output, right there, fader out, and click on bounce. And I can bounce the output out of my session. Before we bounce down and get that final take, I want to close up this mixer window. And then in here in the overall window, I want to sort of shrink my mix down so I can see everything going on. And we want to make sure we know where the start's at. So my start's going to be from here from the beginning. Right here from the beginning of this playback. That's my start. And the end, you'll see it here. It says like 135, right? And that's the project end. So I also have this going on here with the cycles on. So if you have the cycle on, you're trying to bounce down, it's only going to bounce down the area selected for the cycle. Just one time, not repeat, right? Let's get rid of that for one. And then if I want to drag this in, you'll see there's an ending arrow here, right there. See that? So it says current track is frozen. Do you want to unfreeze? I don't want to freeze it for right now. And so now what I want to do is I may want to drag this in here to the end. See that? And as I do, you'll notice that now it says 112 here, right? So let me pull it back further. And so sometimes we got a delay going on, a reverb, and it's going to happen in your mix. And of course, that fader level, as we know, we can add the volume to that as we fade out the mix, right? So you can always fade out your overall mix here, your master output. And what we really want to do is make sure that we have that little tail end going on. So sometimes I will have a little bit more space at the end there. And make sure your size, the area used for your mix is just right. This way, when you bounce down, everything's okay. Make sure there's no muting, no soloing. Make sure everything's right. So you play it back a couple of times. Make sure there's nothing going to happen that's going to surprise you later on. And then you're ready to bounce. Now, once I'm ready to start bouncing, I'm going to bounce down. I'm just going to make sure that I've got everything set up properly, and I'm going to go right here and get my bounce window up here. And in this dialog box, we can see we have the different settings. Now, the beauty of using Logic, we have 4 different outputs we can get. We've got this pulse code modulation, which is a professional sounding output. It gives us an uncompressed file that we can use, that you can send anywhere pretty much. And we have several formats. We have AIFF, we have WAV, and CAF. I prefer to use probably WAV more than anything else, but pick what works best for you. Then we have our resolution, our bit depth of our session. Now, if you're not sure of what that is, you need to go and look back at your preferences. So if I go back to preferences here, now let's close this out first. And I'm going to go back in here to preferences, and I want to look at audio. I can see here that I'm at 24-bit. So I know what's going on. And that's really important to understand what your bit depth is and where you're at audio-wise. So you know, okay, this is my session. I want to make sure it matches up to my bounce file. So here, this is 16. So really, I should be at 24-bit. Then you want to make sure you have the right sample rate. That's really important. Now to check out the sample rate, we go to File, we're going to go to Project Settings, and we're going to go to Audio. Now here we see the sample rate is 44.1. Okay, we know that. That's good. Now go back to my bounce again, and we're at 44.1. This process must be perfect. You must make sure you're exact with it. Otherwise, you will have problems. Next, we have file type. Now, interleave. This is for stereo. So I have an interleave means that these two files are combined into one. I have a left and a right, and only be combined into one separate total audio file that you're going to have, not the split. So keep it interleaved also. Now, dithering. Dithering is used in the process. If I, let's say, for example, my session here is 24-bit, and I want to go to 16 instead. Or my sample rate is 44.1, but I want to go to 96. And so dithering helps process it to go from where it's at to where you want it to be in terms of sample rate and bit depth. Now, if you're rushing out and you're trying to get a mix with someone, you can probably do it this way. But I would use this one here, which is noise shaping, power 2. That's POWR 2 or 3. But I prefer 2 more than anything else. You'll notice here in the destination, you'll see the start point also as well. I got a start point, and then I have an end point here, right? And I can also adjust these too. I can go back to 1 right there and set it up there, and I have my ending point here. Now here in mode, we see real time. Now if I select real time here, I've got to play it from the beginning. It'll go from the beginning to the end of the song and make my file. I prefer offline. It's much easier. It's right there. It'll look at the entire sequence and the tracks and everything and make the file automatically. You can also include an audio tail at the back of it. This means it'll add some extra space in the end in case you want to keep some sort of reverb or something else going on as well. Now below that we have normalize. Now normalizing means it'll just expand it to as loud as it can get the entire track, make it loud enough. And the options here are overload protection only. This means if it gets too loud, it'll say, okay, normalize. And normalize on, which means normalize will be on from the beginning of the bounce down. Now I would do this part probably if you're rushing to get somewhere or you just want to give someone a mix real quick and you haven't had time to do anything. You want to make sure it's not going to be low for the recipient of these files, right? You want to make sure it's given that file and it's good. But otherwise, if you'd followed along with our process here and you've got your mastering, EQ, plugins on top, the compressor and the limiter, and you've done enough, your mix should be solid. Should be no problem. Now below that here we have our MP3. So MP3s are, they're like with your Android phone or your iPhone or your iPod. You're going to want to use an MP3, right? And if you want to send someone that, I prefer to go about 256 or 320. That's the setting I'll use right there. The bit rate here is going to be at 88 kilobytes, which is good. There are other options here available where I can use best encoding and filter frequencies below 10 hertz, which is good. No problem with that. And of course, we have offline as well. Now, below that, we have the ACC, and this is the file made by Apple. It's an advanced audio codecs, which sort of improved on what the MP3 was. And this is great for iTunes. So you go down to here, and you might get 256. And encode with variable bit rate. So that means the bit rate will be variable. It'll adjust back and forth to compensate for any problems. And of course, we have these off and on. This applies to everything, whether it's offline or real time. That applies to all the destinations possibly going to use. And then the last option we have is CD. Sorry, no eligible drives were found. So Apple's looking for hard drives to burn a CD to. And if you have a hard drive on your computer, you can actually burn a CD or DVD of what you've done. Of course, if you have a video in here too, it'll make that DVD along with the video and the audio. Okay, in this case, I may just want to go with these options. And let's try this one too, actually, so you'll see it. And I'll say bounce. But I want you to notice one more thing here. requires 47.5 megabytes of free disk space. And it shows you how long it is. That's 3 minutes and 6 seconds. This is really cool. You want to make sure you have enough space on your system. Now, go to Bounce, and then it opens up a file. I've got a file name, it opens this folder up rather, and in this folder, I can see this is called the Bounces folder, which is part of my Fear overall project folder. I can name it. I can call it Fear Mix Master. And then I can bounce it down directly to this folder. As I do, it starts to do it. And you'll see here, it's bouncing down. So it's doing it offline. Don't have to hear it because we already did it. And once it's done, we'll have the files ready to go. Well, we're almost done here. And once we're done, we'll have the files we'll need. Okay, looks like it's about done here. And now it's converting for the MP3 file. See that? And then you want to go back and you want to look at the file. So I want to go back here to open, and then I'll see the bounces are here, and I have all three of them. AIFF, we have the M4A, which is the ACC, and then we have our MP3 files. Now what I suggest doing too is doing several bounce downs. One with the vocals a little bit up, one with the vocals a little bit down, one with the bass 1 dB up, one with the bass 1 dB down. Get an idea of how different levels sound in your mix, and then play it back. Take your time and relax. And the best thing to do probably is to clean your ears out, is to get quiet. Don't do anything. Maybe relax for a minute, or maybe for a couple hours, or come back the next day, and then listen to your mixes with fresh ears.